So hi there, I'm Harry Lansley and I'm obsessed with human behavior, especially the emotion side of things. My work at EIA involves supporting technology companies with AI development and utilizing Ascan's methodology for analyzing behavior within security and criminal contexts.
And I'm Aaron Garner, equally passionate about behavior analysis and emotional intelligence. And I help individuals and corporate professionals to increase their emotional intelligence and help better have more emotionally intelligent workplaces and personal relationships.
And what we're going to do today is, you've all heard of it. It's the interview between Don Lemon and Elon Musk. I'm sure you don't need us to tell you who those people are. But what we're looking to do on this video is look at that video and see if there's anything from a behavioral aspect or an emotional intelligence aspect that we can comment on, and see if there's anything deeper going on beneath the surface of this interview that everybody's talking about. So let's get into it.
Listen, we are here as part of a launch of a news interview show that is going to be on X.com. It's coming as the media industry, as you know, is going through a whole lot of changes. Yeah. X has also been affected by that. Where do you see X.com's role in the future of news and journalism, Elon?
Well, I think I see the X as it's already the number one source of news in the world. So it is number one, the number one way that people actually are informed about any kind of news, meaning real-time events, is on the X platform, formerly Twitter. There's nothing even close for real-time news. So we also want to expand upon that. And we have done so with long-form content.
One of the things that Elon Musk gets accused for quite a lot is being quite a nervy speaker, and how it looks like he's being a little bit shifty because there's a lot of there's a lot of hesitations, there's a lot of filled pauses and things. But it is just how he talks. Like, you can look at any interview dating way back to when he first started appearing on camera, and he's always talked that way. So I don't think anyone should ever read too much into how he actually talks.
No, I don't think so. And you can tell that his thoughts are running 10 times faster than his words. You know, there's a lot going on there. He's thinking, he's choosing what he wants to say, quite rightly, when he's on film. And it probably doesn't help when, you know, Don Lemon is looking down and checking to see what his next question is, or whatever it was he was looking down at his notes. So as soon as you break eye contact like that, it's probably a good idea to wait until they're finished speaking before you then look down and check your notes, because that can obviously cause nerves or be perceived as you're not listening, or disrespectful as well. So you've got to be careful doing things like that as well.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, one of the things that he does quite often is when he's asked a question, he'll often be silent for what feels like a very uncomfortable length of time. And it is just because he is quite an internal guy. He likes to kind of go into, or it appears that way, he likes to go into his own head for a minute, figure out his response, and respond a bit more deeply than I guess people are used to.
News, meaning real-time events, is on the X platform, formerly Twitter. There's nothing even close for real-time news. So we also want to expand upon that. And we have done so with long-form content. So instead of just doing what used to be called tweets, you can now do long-form posts. You can post an entire essay. In fact, you can now post an entire book to the platform. You can do long-form video content. So you can do up to 4-hour video segments. We really want news in whatever form it is, or information, I should say, in whatever form it is, to be available on our platform, whether it's short, long, text, pictures, video, whatever the case may be.
So just to put a little bit of context behind that as well. So one of the reasons why Elon Musk is inviting these kind of key players within media and other areas and bringing more functionality to X is because he's been saying, well, X needs to be profitable. He paid an unbelievable amount of money for it. And one of the ways X will make money is through advertising, and advertisers will pay to be on a platform if people's eyeballs are there. So you get big names on, more people will be there, more eyeballs, more ad revenue. So the reason why Don Lemon was given an opportunity to come on X was really because Don Lemon's got a big name. He used to be on CNN. He used to be one of the key anchors. Now Elon Musk wants those big names on that platform, bringing the eyeballs. So that's the context of why Don Lemon has this interview to begin with. I mean, Elon Musk isn't just going to give Don Lemon an interview without having a reason for it.
You reached out over the summer and you said it would be great to have Maddow, Don Lemon, others on the left put on this platform. You received full support. The digital town square is for all. What do you mean by that?
Well, I just mean that we want to make sure that there are a wide variety of viewpoints. That it's, we always have, for example, Tucker Carlson, who most people will view as being on the right, that's quite a prominent name on the right. We want to have prominent names on the left as well to provide different points of view, as well as centrists. Just basically a wide range of viewpoints on the platform, so users can hear different opinions. They can hear, what's your point of view, what's Tucker's point of view, and and people can make their own decision about what they believe.
You didn't mean that I'm on the left? Did you think that?
I thought you were on the left, but I don't know. Well, let's just say I don't know what the left is or the right is, frankly, these days, because things can be quite polarized. But my impression was that you're more likely to be described as on the left than the right. My sense is you're sort of center left. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, did you ever watch me on CNN, or did you watch?
I saw I saw segments.
Yeah.
But CNN is generally considered left.
Yeah. Why do you say that?
Why do I say CNN is?
So we're very early into the interview, and he's already attacking Elon almost for suggesting CNN is left, which absolutely everyone and their dog knows is a left-leaning organization.
Yeah, and I think there's the whole thing about who is coming on to X is interesting as well, because it seems like some of the names, Don Lemon, for example, left CNN after a bit of a train wreck of some things he said on CNN, so he left that. And then you've got Tucker Carlson and other people that have been essentially media cancelled for some of the things that people say, and you have quite extreme views that so he's talking about having different views, but they're actually quite radically polarized views in this case. So you're seeing X wanting to be that kind of, covering a huge, broad range of different opinions, which is interesting. The people that are trying to pull in.
100%, and that's one of the things that he says that I absolutely loved, and I latched onto it as soon as he said it. It's the town square of the internet. And the whole idea is, in a town square, you can say whatever you want, and it'll be the people around you that will tell you they disagree with you or, agree with you. And I think what he's trying to say is the X platform will not be moderated any differently than going to Piccadilly Gardens. If you say something abusive in Piccadilly Gardens, there's a good chance that people are going to cast you aside and they're not going to want to engage with you, or worse. And if you go there and you're spouting something that people agree with, then, people will join your journey. And I don't see why the internet should be any different than a physical town square.
Yeah.
I think if you look at any sort of media survey of what is on the left or right, I think they would say, like, for example, Fox is on the right and CNN is on the left.
Yeah. So that's what is it?
Am I missing something here?
Okay. Are you missing something? I don't know. I think that when I read that, I said, like many of my critics or detractors, they never really watched me on CNN. They just saw the clips of me either on social media or maybe on Fox News or in conservative media, where it's sort of where I've become a character or a caricature of what I actually am, and it's taken out of context.
Sure. Well, how would you describe yourself?
I would describe myself as someone who is, I am independent in my thinking, and I vote for people based on the issues and how I feel about it, not necessarily because of political leaning of some sort.
Well, I agree with that approach. I think that's generally how people should take things, which is, there are a whole sort of set of issues which are sort of somewhat arbitrarily bucketed into right or left. But I think most citizens would think that they would agree with some things on the left, but not everything, or they agree on some things on the right, but not everything. So that's what I think most people feel, I guess.
There was an article recently written about you saying that you, Donald Trump, and X were the most important people or places or whatever icons when it comes to the MAGA movement. Do you agree with that? How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, there are nonsense articles written all the time, and I certainly wouldn't agree with that one. I put it in the nonsense category. So the objective fact of the matter, in my opinion, was that that old Twitter was fundamentally a tool of the far left. And that was really, I think, a lot of it was due to being located in San Francisco, Berkeley. And so it wanted.
Don Lemon is an experienced interviewer, but you can just tell already he doesn't like Elon at all. And Elon will be picking up on this. Just the subtle things of when Elon's talking, if you're asking an interview, if your genuine goal is to just get as much information as possible, which really that kind of should be your job, is help the person along with what they're trying to say, a couple of encouraging head nods, engaging with the eyes, just trying to get a little bit more information. Don Lemon is not moving. He's almost staring at Elon Musk. And it's incredibly uncomfortable to watch. I can only imagine how it feels being Elon Musk in this scenario.
And I think it depends how this is framed in Don Lemon's head. There's a difference in the approaches to the interview. I think Elon is essentially doing this because it's someone on the platform that's asked for an interview. He's doing the interview, whereas Don seems to be coming at it with gradually more increasing gotcha type questions, which obviously was just kicked back pretty quickly by Elon in this one, calling, well, that's just nonsense. I put that in the nonsense category, and then reframing and moving away from it. It's interesting that it's literally just throwing a question. Let's see how you react to this, and then so I think the approach to the interview is different from both of these people. One person, I'll do you a favor, I'll give you an interview. I don't like doing these sorts of things, but I'll do one for you. And then let's see if I can get you with these ones, which is
100%.
Two very different approaches.
It seems like he's come in with some kind of agenda, and I mean, he even says this up front in the little clip he says at the beginning when he's introducing what the interview is going to be about. He says, "Me and Elon have got all these different views, and we don't really agree on any of them." And the other thing we got to think about is Don Lemon has come from CNN. Don Lemon is left-leaning, whether he wants to admit it or not. And he probably got a lot of jip from his friends and his ex-colleagues about going onto the X platform. There's been a lot of critique from on the left-hand side about the X platform, saying exactly what Don Lemon just said. There's a lot of people who are X is getting the reputation for being a bit more right-leaning. So he's got a safe face now. People are like, wait a second, you're from CNN, you're Don Lemon, and you're going on the X platform with, Tucker Carlson. What's that about? And he's like, well, don't judge me yet. I'll show you what I'm about. So this is almost like his opportunity to just stick his flag in the ground and say, just because I'm on the X platform, that doesn't mean I'm going to be a sucker for Elon Musk. How it feels, though, is he's overplaying that hand a little bit, because what he's not doing is actually getting good responses from Elon Musk. And when Elon Musk is giving him a response, and this is actually becoming really frustrating, is there's never anything after it. He just immediately goes straight to the next question. And I think he'd have more success with the interview if he employed a little bit of active listening and actually came back with a response rather than just shifting.
Yeah, it's not a dialogue, is it? It's quite one way. It's like, I'll ask you a pointed question, you respond. If you don't respond the way that I think you respond, I'll ask you a more pointed question or something. But there's not a debate. What would be good is if they do differ in opinion, to hear more of Don's views and Elon's views and have a constructive debate around issues rather than
100%.
just putting it all on Elon. Yes, it's needed to find more about Elon. It is being framed in that way, but it would come across a lot better for Don if there was more of a dialogue, I think.
MAGA. And speaking of MAGA, you recently met with Donald Trump in Florida. What did you guys talk about?
I was at a dinner. I was not done. I was at a breakfast at a friend's place, and Donald Trump came by. That's it.
So you didn't go there to meet him?
No, I went to a friend of mine's house and said Donald Trump's coming by for breakfast. Is that just so you know? Like, okay, fine.
What did you discuss?
Let's just say he did most of the talking.
What did you say?
The normal things he says. There was nothing particularly groundbreaking or new, but he, President Trump likes to talk, and so
we can clearly see here that there's. I don't, and it continues on, but he doesn't. He's clearly not wanting to talk about what was talked about, and quite rightly so. It was a private conversation. So whether it is that Donald Trump did do all the talking and Elon didn't do too much talking, or whether what they talked about is something he does not want to discuss, there's clearly some discomfort with this particular question. There's a lot of more hesitancy, a lot more disfluency in the way he's talking. Yes, he is hesitant and has disfluency generally, but yeah, he is struggling to that, and that's not a problem. But it's clear that question has triggered a slightly different state in Elon when thinking about how to answer it. He's not comfortable answering this. It's not I'll consider my answer and then give it to you in Elon fashion. Here it's I'll consider my answer and then I don't really. He's struggling on how to articulate it.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's a fairly strange question to ask as well, because on the one hand, it's a very private matter, and it begs the question. And I know it sounds like I'm like going after Don on this, and I'm just like trying to protect Elon. It's just I am literally saying what I'm seeing. Is what is the point of that question? So really, if we're going for an information gathering, asking something on, how do you feel about Donald Trump and his policies? How would you feel if Donald Trump was president? You're going to get a better response from Elon, like actual genuine information that you can then place on, where Elon Musk might sit on that spectrum, versus just trying to connect Elon Musk and Donald Trump, because that's what it seems like the question is trying to do. It's trying to link the two. So now when you think about Donald Trump, you will think about Elon Musk. And it feels like it's almost a tactic to put Elon in the Trump camp. Yeah,
he's doubling down because he's opened with the question around MAGA and the fact that Elon is connected with MAGA, and then it's like, okay, well we'll separate that. I'm getting nothing from that, but you did meet Trump, so you are connected. So he's still going down that same route, just taking a different angle and a different way of getting to essentially what I think you're right in saying. He's still trying to make that connection. So he's just taking different, which is from an interviewing point of view. If you don't get the response that you're after, or from one question, can you ask the question differently to get the information in a different way? So it's an interesting tactic, but I don't think it's working very well.
We'll see.
I don't recall him saying anything that he hasn't said publicly, and it was just a breakfast.
Did he ask you for money?
He didn't.
Did he ask you for a donation?
No.
He didn't?
No.
You said you're not going to donate to any candidate.
That's correct.
Why not?
I think while I'll voice my opinion, I think I don't want to put a thumb on the scale monetarily that is, significant.
Are you going to loan him money to help pay his bills?
No,
not at all. Pay his legal bills.
I'm not paying his legal bills in any way, shape, or form.
And he did not ask you for money.
And he did not ask me for money.
Are you going to? So you're not going to endorse a candidate?
I may, in the final stretch, endorse a candidate, but I don't know yet. I want to. make a considered decision before the election. And if I do decide to endorse a candidate, then I will explain exactly why.
Are you leaning towards anyone?
No.
You're not leaning towards anyone. Because you've been...
Let me say I'm leaning away from Biden.
You're leaning...
I've made no secret of
I
that.
think he's reading between the lines on this as well, isn't he? Because, Don is asking questions about future tense. So he's saying, are you going to be paying legal bills? Are you going to be donating? Are you going to be? And you see a slight smile of acknowledgement for Elon. He says, I'm not paying his legal bills. So he goes to the present tense. So I think he sees there's an inference here in Don potentially not believing him and thinks that he is donating money or he is going to be or he is paying. So it's interesting that you get that switch back to the present tense from Elon and say, I'm not doing that. Because Don actually asked a future question, not a present question.
So that's quite clever on both parts, because asking a future question means any denial means he can never do it, which means he can then be like, Elon Musk was lying. And Elon Musk saying, I'm not doing it now, means he could do it later and he can't be accused of lying. So in a game of tennis, that's a draw.
Yeah. So is that why he said it? So the question is, did he say it because he thought he was being accused of it now, or was he being clever and saying, I'm not doing it right now, but I might in the future? Is it what was going on there? It's interesting though. We see a lot of cognitive load again. We're seeing a lot of thinking going on here. Elon's eyes do this kind of flickering when he's thinking there, which a lot of people do. It's one thing. There's no general sign of cognitive load, obviously, but that seems to be quite idiosyncratic kind of behaviour for Elon.
I tell you, his laugh is interesting as well, and it's not the first time I've seen it. But when things get really quite tense, either because someone said something tense to him or he's saying something back to them, he almost preempts it with this little laugh, and it's almost like a diffusion of tension whilst recognizing the tension is rising. It's quite interesting.
So you've been posting up a storm, as you always do in the past couple of weeks, about the redesign of the Tesla Roadster. Are there any kind of updates that you can talk about to expect from your flagship EV? I mean, Tesla stock is down the last 6 months. What's next for the company?
The stocks go up and down, but what really matters is, are we making and delivering great products?
He nailed that one quick.
Outstanding.
He did. So this I see this all the time, and it drives me crazy, is when, so he specifically said your stocks are down over the last 6 months. Now, if you're not necessarily interested in the stock markets and you don't kind of look at what Tesla stocks have been like over the year or over 3-5 years, that sounds terrible. It sounds like you have done something that have led to the stock tanking. What he doesn't caveat that with is, if you look at Tesla stock over the last 5 years, it's up like nearly 900%. So saying it's down over 6 months, but that's like, he's not benchmarked that against anything. And the news outlets do this all the time, is they will use a stock price to almost badmouth a CEO or a company without putting it into context on how the stock has performed over an extended period of time. And he's just done that.
Yeah, he's framing it in a way that infers your company's not doing well.
Exactly.
And it's, as I say, taken out of context of the wider stock market trends. So
over time, you have been tweeting about the updates in the Roadsters. There's something that we should expect?
Sure. You did mention the Roadster. So, look, I don't want to give away, much more than what I've said publicly, except that the Roadster will be a collaboration between SpaceX and Tesla. So, you can expect some rockety stuff there.
A flying car?
Maybe. It's not
I like
question.
that.
Go on.
No, I like.
Yeah,
it was a very teasing gesture, wasn't it? It's kind of like, well, you never know. Enough room to make us all think, is he serious? Is there going to be a flying car?
I mean, this is the thing with Elon Musk as well, is like he does have a tendency to really overpromise and then deliver beneath that. However, everything he does deliver is still better than everything that existed beforehand. So he gets away with it.
I gotta reserve the cool stuff for the, you know, when we actually unveil it. But it's gonna be really cool. It's gonna have some rocket technology in it. I think the only way to do something that's cooler than the Cybertruck is to combine the SpaceX and Tesla technology to create something that's not even really a car.
Then what would it be?
Something that's never existed before.
I'm getting Jetsons vibes.
Totally Jetsons vibes. The ones may not be aware, like some things that I have said publicly is that it'll do 0 to 60 in under 1 second. So that's by far faster than any sports car that exists.
That's outrageous.
And
it's terrifying. It's what.
And that's not even the most exciting thing about it.
Does it have wings?
No, it does not have big wings, because big wings would be unwieldy on the road.
Does it have propellers?
It does not have propellers.
Okay. It has wheels.
It does have wheels. Okay. Roadster 20 questions.
He's taken that Jetsons thing a long way, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the thing as well, is like, you don't have to. Don Lemon clearly doesn't like Elon Musk. You don't have to like someone to build rapport with them, especially when there's a purpose behind what you're trying to do. And in this case, it's like, a police officer doesn't have to like a potential criminal when he's interviewing them, but he has to build rapport because he wants to gather information. He's just come across something that Elon Musk is clearly excited about, clearly animated about. And rather than kind of allowing Elon the space to build that excitement, talk about it, build rapport, which down the line will help him. If he builds rapport now, when it's easy, talking about something that excites him, there's a good chance that it's going to be reciprocated later when they're talking about something else. And Don Lemon's not taking this opportunity to build rapport, and it's crazy that he isn't.
Yeah, it seems like this is a filler question of some description. He kind of doesn't really want to talk about it, does he? So yeah, he would see a really animated Elon if he asked some questions that were a little bit more serious about things.
Let's talk now about SpaceX, Tesla. You got a lot of lawsuits. You've got X.com. You got a lot going on. How do you relax?
Well, I relax. I spend time with my kids, my friends, and I, make somewhat of a nerd technologist, so I like playing video games. So I'll play video games with friends online.
Which one?
Lately I've been playing Diablo, but I've played almost all the games over the years. A long time ago I was like semi-pro good at Quake. This is really dating me, because we're talking about like 25 years ago.
I don't know video games. I just know that my great nephew loves Fortnite and some other stuff. He's always with the headphones and doing the thing.
His great nephew. So it's just any opportunity he's got just to slap him down, he'll take. And regardless of what you think of Elon Musk, within this interview, he's coming across really well. And Don Lemon isn't.
Yeah, and he opened his question with, "You've got a lot of lawsuits." And then,
he did.
So he came in there. So it was this, how do you relax? So how do you relax is what Elon took and ran with, which is great. He completely ignored the initial element of that question and just went with I relax, and then went into the video games. Diablo's a very good game. And I think that's probably not what Don wants. So he's then being quite flippant with his questions, and essentially comparing Elon's relaxation with his nephew. So where is he going with that framing as well? But yeah, it's an interesting way. But Don's clearly not getting what he thought he would get.
Yeah.
So that helps you relax, right? So
And the nice thing is, if you've got friends in different cities and they're playing the same game, you can both go online at the same time.
Just sticking with the online game and
play the game together, even though you're in different cities.
Listen, I'm not asking you anything that anyone else hasn't asked you about your controversial stuff that you tweet. You post a lot of controversial stuff. Is that considered blowing off steam?
Well, I guess I do enjoy using the platform. I mean, I do call the X platform the PvP, or player versus player platform. So in video games, there's player versus like environment, where you're not playing against other people, and then there's PvP, which is like hardcore. You're actually playing against other people, and
but that's blowing off steam for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is to some degree, not always. I mean, obviously I use it for to post jokes, to post sometimes trivia, sometimes things that are of great importance.
So you do a lot of it at night, like late at night. So when you're doing this, are you sober when you do it?
Almost always.
Are you
yes.
under the influence of anything?
No, I don't drink. I don't really. No.
So you got no drink, no smoke, no nothing. I mean, you smoke pot with Rogan.
I had one puff.
Yeah.
I think anyone who smokes pot can tell I don't know how to smoke pot.
But you've admitted that
it was inevitable that was going to come up at some point, I think. And he did say almost always when he said, "Well, you sober?" It's almost always. So he doesn't drink loads, clearly. But it's again, there's that qualifier in there. He didn't say he's always sober. He said he's almost always sober. And a lot of people like a drink, so you can't really hold it against him for that either. But it's weird that it went from relaxation, blowing off steam, controversy, and now we're talking about whether you're sober or not, and smoking on Joe Rogan. So it's interesting where this is going to suddenly flip from relaxation to bridging with blowing off steam to now in this direction. So it's interesting to see how he's going to handle this one.
I mean, it seems purposeful, doesn't it? If you go all the way back to, you've had many lawsuits, how do you relax? From that question to here, it seems like he wants to take on the pathway to, you take drugs, don't you? And that's how it's coming across. And that's how Elon Musk will feel. And again, it's, come on, do your job.
But you've admitted that you have a ketamine prescription.
Yeah.
What's that for?
Well, I mean, it's pretty private to ask somebody about a medical prescription, But I think it's something I'd say, like, there are times when I have sort of I don't know, like a negative chemical state in my brain, like depression, I guess, is or like depression that's not linked to any negative views, and then ketamine is helpful for getting one out of a negative frame of mind.
Well, listen,
in fact, I generally, obviously I'm not a doctor, but I would say if someone has depression issues, they should consider talking to their doctor about ketamine instead of SSRIs.
Listen, I think that ketamine and drug therapy is increasingly becoming more in the mainstream.
Yeah.
Do you think you're doing it under a doctor's care, right?
Yeah. Literally a prescription from a real doctor, not like,
Yeah, but do you feel like you ever abuse it?
I don't think so. If you use too much ketamine, you can't really get work done. So I have a lot of work. So I'm typically putting in 16-hour days. That's normal for me, and it's rare for me to even take off a weekend day. So I don't really have a situation where I can be not mentally acute for an extended period of time. Like I can't really get wasted because I can't get my work done.
So how often do you take it?
Well, it'd be like a small amount once every other week or something like that.
But there's not on the bottle where it says take this dose this many times a week or whatever. If it's not
there's a dose. There are several weeks will go by where I don't use it.
You don't use it.
Yeah, I think it's just, like I said, I think what I find ketamine is if you like literally like a chemical state in your brain that you can't just think yourself out of, then ketamine is helpful for getting you out of a depressive mind state.
You suffer from depression, or you have a depressive mind state? And I asked you as someone who has suffered from depression.
I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say
It's interesting that, I mean, it's this is quite uncomfortable to watch generally, this section, it seems.
Yep.
I think Elon is dealing with it well. He's talking about, mental health, and it does affect a lot of people, and the way he deals with it. He's taking a legal route to deal with it. He's trying to counter. I think there's an inference here that he's a ketamine addict or something. I don't know where Don's going with this one, but he's trying to frame it that no, I use it when I need it, and it sounds like Elon thinks he's doing a service to other people that may find benefit as well. Obviously hedging that with the fact that he's not a doctor, and you should speak to your doctor as well. But it was interesting that it's still being pushed on by Don, but now he's added, I speak as someone that has suffered with depression as well. So he's using that to ensure he gets rapport, because I think he can sense that there's an uncomfortableness from Elon here. So he's having to do that. And I'm not saying that he hasn't obviously suffered with depression in the past, but he's bringing that up to make sure that he keeps that rapport in place, so that he can continue asking the question rather than just pushing on a sensitive topic, I think.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point.
Like extended depression. It's just once in a while I get into a negative sort of chemical mind state. Once in a while. It's not a common thing, but once in a while it does happen.
Where do you think that comes from?
I think it's just genetic, basically.
You think it's just genetic history?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, some people are just wired to be happy all the time. Some are unfortunately wired to be sad a lot of the time. And in my case, I'm generally pretty positive and optimistic. But once in a while, I don't know what happens. There's some, like I said, I think it's just chemical tides in your brain. Once in a while, it's like a brain storm.
I mean, there's no denying that Elon Musk is a very, very intelligent guy. I mean, literally a rocket engineer. And for the vast majority of people, it's very difficult to try and put yourself in those shoes. Everyone's brain is different. Where some people have strengths, others have weaknesses. It's not surprising to hear that someone who is intellectually gifted will have some other kind of side effects that require some kind of medication. It's yeah.
And I think he's been very open at this point as well. It sounds like he wants to move on. He's trying to close the question down because he's repeated himself now at least 2 times, mentioning the it's a negative state that he finds himself in. So it's not like standard depression as he says it. It's a negative state. There's chemical tides and things like that he's talking about. So he's not saying that I am perpetually depressed. I just sometimes this happens and I do this, and I think that's kind of where he wants to end it. But it keeps getting drawn back. So, but he's being quite open about it, and has done in the past as well about ketamine, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you ever worry that this may get in the way of your government contracts and clearances, and also and Wall Street as well?
Well, from a standpoint of Wall Street, what matters is execution. Are you building value for investors? Tesla is worth about as much as the rest of the car industry combined, from nothing. So that's pretty good. As I mentioned, we had the best-selling.
I genuinely think that's the first time we've actually seen a Don Lemon head nod to just encouragement of, I'm hearing what you're saying, which is bonkers.
Big car on Earth last year. So from an investor standpoint, if there is something I'm taking, I should keep taking it.
Have you talk about your ketamine use and depression? Have you also have said, and
the reason I should say the reason I mentioned the ketamine prescription on the X platform was because I thought maybe this is something that could help other people. That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah. Can we talk about the great replacement theory now? Some of the things that
So that right there, that's very, very irritating. Is he's just taken Elon on a long journey of questioning about his ketamine use, his drug use. Elon Musk comes out with that is, look, the reason I talk about it is because I genuinely had the intention of trying to help people. And he said that a few minutes earlier about speak to your doctor about blah, blah, blah. And then because it wasn't, or it seems like it wasn't the answer Don Lemon was looking for, immediately switches into a different realm. Now, if you're Elon Musk, you're like, he's essentially speaking from the heart on that topic right there. As you said, it's quite an emotional, difficult thing to watch. And then it's almost like he doesn't get the opportunity to catch a breath before the pendulum swings into a different direction. And it's actually just an unfair way of interviewing someone.
I mean, to have no bridge between that topic and what appears to be another very controversial topic, there's no softer in between. To suddenly go from that, you're gonna get a jerk reaction back from that. It's going to be a jarring reaction because he's just been, as I said, just been very open, and then to suddenly flip with no bridge or acknowledgement of his last response and to go straight into it is that's always going to be a jarring response and dangerous from a report point of view.
Can we talk about the great replacement theory now? Some of the things that you post, the great replacement theory, you claim that Democrats, President Biden's immigration plan to open up the border, you said that the president is getting, and Democrats are doing it to get more votes. But undocumented immigrants cannot vote in federal elections, so how is that possible?
Right. Well, you're conflating two things. One is great replacement theory. The other is, which I don't subscribe to that. I'm simply saying that there is an incentive here. If legal immigrants, which I think have a very strong bias to, at least everything I've read, it's a very strong bias to vote Democrat. The more that come into the country, the more they're likely to vote in that direction. But it is, in my view, a simple incentive to increase voters, Democrat voters. Yeah, so the question is like how? So there's a few ways that this works. One is that when the census is done, the census is based on all people in an area, whether they are citizens or not. So if there are a concentration of people who came here illegally in a particular state or in a particular state, that state will actually then get an increased number of House seats. So the House seat apportionment is proportionate to the number of people, not the number of citizens. So the illegals overwhelmingly go to places like California and New York, and if you just look at the math, if you look at the apportionment with and without illegals, I believe California would lose. I believe the blue state, there would be a net loss of blue states of approximately 20 seats in the House. This also applies to the Electoral College. So you say, like, well, this also applies to electing the president, because the electoral votes are also done by apportionment the same way that House seats are done.
But the reason, Elon, the Electoral College is in place is to balance that, is so that doesn't happen. So what you're saying about it is the exact opposite of the reason why the Electoral College is there. The Electoral College at this point, in our history, gives people who are in smaller states and red states much more of an influence over our elections than people who are in blue states, and the majority of the people in this country. That's what the Electoral College does. It actually does the exact opposite of what you're saying. It protects people who are in smaller states and protects people who are in red states.
Well,
the red states, because they tend to be smaller and less populous.
I think that statement is what you said is true, but what I said is also true, which is that if, as is the case, a disproportionate number of legal immigrants go to blue states, they amplify the effect of a blue state vote. And the math, as I understand it, you can research this obviously very easily on it. It's pretty straightforward to research this. But my understanding is that there would be that the Democrats would lose approximately 20 seats in the House if illegals were not counted in the census. And that's also 20 less electoral votes for president. So the illegals absolutely do affect the who controls the House and who controls the presidency. It does not affect the Senate.
Yeah. In blue states, you're talking about. I
Yes.
don't believe that your information on that is right. So listen, let's talk more about the Great Replacement, because the first time that you posted on X about this Jewish
present any
conspiracy,
of it.
you ended up
I
apologizing.
didn't call it a conspiracy. I just said that there's a simple matter of incentives. You don't need a conspiracy when you have basic incentives. In my view, there's a basic incentive that's fundamental that for the Democrat Party to foster and usher in a large number of illegals. Yeah. And you don't need a conspiracy in that case, because you have a very basic incentive. You could say I'm wrong about that incentive, but that's my view. I'm not buying some great replacement theory. I'm simply saying there appears to be a very clear incentive for Democrats to maximize the number of illegals because it helps them win elections.
I'm talking about the Great Replacement theory is also part of a Jewish conspiracy theory. And when you did the tweet, or you responded to the tweet about that, you ended up apologizing, and which I think is, it's good that you ended up apologizing. You went to Auschwitz with Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
So you said you learned your lesson. What did you learn?
I said I learned my lesson.
You said you learned your lesson when you apologized, and you said you went to Auschwitz. You saw what.
No, I was already aware of these things, and the nature of my comment that really inflamed people. What I was trying to say, and I did very quickly clarify. This is what I'm saying: is that a number of prominent Jewish philanthropists fund groups that they should really take a closer look at funding, because some of the groups they fund, I think, are anti-Semitic.
Yeah. Do you understand the connection between the two? There's a connection between, you said Democrats, the Great Replacement theory, but when it comes to the actual Great Replacement theory, originally it was started about Jewish people, as you said, flooding in the country, and then now people are using it for Democrats, saying the same thing about Democrats. Flooding.
In my view, it's a simple matter of incentive.
Yeah.
I don't actually don't see an
He's
incentive.
not enjoying that, is he?
No.
And I think that it is difficult, because Elon has said some very controversial things in the past. And any time you mention a group of people, you're on dangerous ground. Now, X has been framed as being the town square. You can say what you like, as long as it's not, breaking the law. And that's always going to be dangerous. So he does have to expect, to an extent, if you are agreeing with extreme views and one or another, whether you clarify them later, you got to expect that you're going to have to explain, apologize or don't apologize, but you're going to have to explain your views, but you are going to be asked questions on it.
Jewish people to want to have legal immigration. I don't think there is such an incentive.
The Great Replacement theory is a neo-Nazi trope. It's in the neo-Nazi manifesto. It's in the Turner Diaries. It's referenced by the Buffalo mass shooter in his manifesto, where 10 people, black people, were murdered in Buffalo. There's the actual title of the Christchurch shooters manifesto. 51 people in the Muslim mosque were murdered. 23 people murdered in El Paso by a shooter who used the same language that you use in that manifesto when you say Hispanic invasion. Is that not?
I didn't say an Hispanic invasion.
And you quoted a tweet that called it a Hispanic invasion.
If I quote something, it doesn't mean I agree with everything in it. It's just something that I think this is something worth people should consider.
Why would you quote something that you didn't believe?
Because anything I quote is going to have a whole range of statements. Doesn't mean I agree with everything in it.
Do you think if you moderated yourself more, if there was better content moderation on the platform, that you wouldn't have to answer these questions from reporters about the Great Replacement theory as it relates to
I don't have to
Democrats,
answer these questions.
Great Replacement theory as it relates to Jewish people? Do you think that?
I don't have to answer questions from reporters. Don, the only reason I'm doing this interview is because you're on the X platform and you asked for it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I would not do this interview.
So you don't think do you think that you wouldn't get in trouble, or you wouldn't be criticized for these things?
I'm criticized constantly. I could.
So I mean, that's just a simple change of power. Is look, I'm the one here with the power. You need to settle down.
Yeah, and I think it's yeah, you've got to be careful. Again, coming back to this point, as a somebody in the public eye, like Elon Musk, he can have opinions, and it seems like he's comfortable with the fact that he gets criticized about those things, and some of his opinions are extreme, shall we say, and might be deemed into lumped in with conspiracy theory and all those kinds of things, and they seem to be being conflated with great replacement theory here, which he's trying to push away from at that point. But it seems like Don is suggesting that you shouldn't be allowed to have extreme views or voice those extreme views. I think that's where he's going with this, which is counter to what Elon's trying to do with the town square, say what you like element.
You don't care?
No, I don't.
Why not?
I don't think people should care what the media thinks about them. They're terrible judges of character.
Even someone who has one of the biggest social media and biggest information platforms in the world, you don't care? You don't think that you have any X.com or you have any responsibility to the truth or moderating the platform?
You're conflating the truth with the media, and I think the media is not truthful.
Well, not just the media. I mean, just the truth in general.
I care about the truth very much. That's why we have, for example, community notes on the X system, where in order for a community note to surface and provide corrective information about what somebody posts, and my posts are equally subject to this. I've been community noted many times. In order for a community note to surface, people who have historically disagreed must agree in order for a community note to surface. And all of the code for community notes is open source. All of the data is open source, so you can completely recreate it from scratch. The way to build trust is transparency.
I have noticed community notes. I think that you are right about that, and I do think community notes are helpful. I think
the word truth being used by Don there, because we talk about truth and deception and those things in the programs, and truth is definitely a loaded word. If he means facts, that's different, because truth and facts are not the same thing. We talk about that. When we talk about the truth, somebody could tell what they believe to be the truth, a sincere attempt for inaccurate information, for example. Someone could say, okay, I'm going to say what I believe to be true. They may be factually incorrect, hence we have the check-it system. But theoretically, everybody's entitled to say their truth and then be corrected later on. But everybody can be misinformed, and the media misinforms people all the time. So the media will spin particular stories, and this is why we typically recommend to students, for example, have a look at different media outlets for the same story, and see how they're communicated differently, because truth is very subjective. So you'll have the facts of an event being communicated over here by this channel in one way, and here in a different way, and here in a different way. They're all talking about the same event, but they're all talking about through a different lens. And people will do that on social media all the time. People are communicating how they feel, what they believe, what they understand about something. They may be factually incorrect, and later it's proven to be factually incorrect, but it's still, at the time, it's their truth. So everyone's trying to provide what they believe to be true information.
Type of content moderation. I do think that's helpful. You recently called content moderation, though, a digital chastity belt. Do you think that you believe that X and you have some responsibility to moderate hate speech on the platform?
I think we have a responsibility to adhere to the law, and we have a responsibility to be transparent about when things are shown, why they're shown. So that's why we open source our algorithm. I think once you start going beyond the law, now you're putting your thumb on the scale. And we don't want to put our thumb on the scale.
It doesn't concern you that hate speech has gone. Research shows that it's gone up on the platform since you took over. That's not concerning to you?
I believe that is false. In fact, the research that I've seen says it went down.
The study from the Institute of Strategic Dialogue found that anti-Semitic tweets doubled from June 22 to February 2023. One study reported that as many as 86% of the posts reported for hateful content remained up after being reported. Hate speech on the platform is up.
So what they will typically do is they will count the number of posts, but not count the number of views. So what matters is, was that post given high visibility, or what did like one person see it? And if you look at the number of views of how many times was hate content viewed on our platform, it is down substantially.
Yeah. Well, that's not was what the study shows. And you said you like transparency. I'm going to show you this, and
Don, you can get a study that will tell you whatever you want.
But these are just a handful of extremely. You look at those anti-Semitic and racist tropes and tweets, and as of this morning, they're still on X. And from your own content policy, these posts should have been deleted. So why haven't they been deleted? Why are they still there? Did you?
We delete things if they are illegal.
But these have been up there for a while.
Are they illegal?
They're not illegal, but they're hateful, and they can lead to violence. As I just read to you, the shooters, in all of these mass shootings, attributed social media.
They just need to agree to disagree on
to
this.
radicalizing.
So Don,
it's the thing. If that's the hard line that. Yeah, that's the hard line that Elon's. I mean, he always says he's a absolutist when it comes to freedom of speech. So if it's illegal, you can't say it. Other than that, fair game is essentially what he's saying. And that there's a large margin of things that you can say if that's your line. And I guess at this point, that's the line he's taking. So he's not going to shift from that line, I doubt. It's like, if it's not illegal, it stays on. If it's illegal, it comes off. So it can be, hugely offensive. It can be disgusting. It can be, use whatever adjectives you want. But if it's not illegal, it stays. And that's his line. So where do you go with that argument? That it's pretty.
I mean, it's just going to go round and round in circles. Like he's.
Then why are you asking?
I believe in moderation, but I don't believe in
censorship. Moderation is a propaganda word for censorship.
But don't you think free speech is one thing, right? Or not,
Look, if something's illegal, we're going to take it down. If it's not illegal, then we're putting our thumb on the scale and we're being censors.
You're putting your thumb on the scale for moderating hate speech. I mean, you don't put out child pornography. That's not.
It's illegal.
Some people would say that's considered censorship. I'm just saying you.
No, I literally, Don, I literally said, if something is illegal, okay, we will obviously remove it.
Okay.
But if it is not legal, the laws in this country are put forward by the citizens. We're a democracy. If those laws are put in place by the people, we adhere to those laws.
Okay, I agree.
To the laws of others. If you go beyond the law, you're actually going beyond the will of the people.
Okay, agreed with the law. But if you are doing something that promotes hate and violence and ultimately leads to killing, you don't feel you have any responsibility not to do that? When the people who are doing it admittedly are saying
there's articles all the time that lead to violence and killing. Don't they? Shouldn't they? Like, you're applying a differential standard to.
But that would never be in mainstream media. These types of images, that type of language, those things would never be. We'd never. When I was in mainstream media, we'd never promote things that would be anti-Semitic. We would never promote things that would.
Anti-Semitic either.
Did you not see those?
You said promote. If content is on the platform, that doesn't mean we promote it.
But that wouldn't be on a platform for mainstream media at all.
No, but you can think of that's because the mainstream media has like 20 articles a day. We have 500 million posts today.
Okay, understood.
500 million.
Does it bother you? How do you feel about that when you see it?
I obviously disagree with that. I think it's not good at all. It's terrible.
But you don't want to get rid of it on the platform, or at least moderate it.
The what you're suggesting is censorship that goes beyond the law. And what I'm saying is that we, I guess, have a disagreement, because I do not believe in censorship that goes beyond the law, and you do. We have a difference of opinion in that regard.
I understand that, but these are your own rules on your own platform. These go against the rules on your platform. That's why I'm asking you. If you said, listen, we allow everything, but that's not what your content rules say, and that's why I'm asking you, why are they still there? Your own content policy. That's why I'm asking you that, not because.
Which part of our content policy says that we should delete these things?
Your content policy talks about hate speech.
Yes, we don't promote hate speech.
And so you don't consider that hate speech?
I guess you're not understanding what I'm saying. There's if there's you can find, like, you can sign up right now and do 100 things that are hateful, but if nobody reads it, it doesn't matter. So you can think of X as being, it's much like the internet. It's not some tiny publication with like 20 articles a day. It's 500 million.
But everyone has the opportunity to read it, Elon.
Everyone has the opportunity to read the internet. Are you suggesting we should shut down the internet?
No, but you don't own the internet. I'm asking you about you and your responsibility and your platform. And so I see how you feel now.
He doesn't own the internet yet.
You don't agree.
He doesn't own the internet yet.
I mean, he literally has satellites beaming the internet from space, so he kind of does, to be fair.
I think this is, you can tell that Elon's getting very frustrated at this point. And I mean, he said he drew the line in the sand when he said, is it illegal? Yes or no? And you can say hateful things and it not be illegal. Now, hate speech is, as being defined in the law, and inciting hatred, inciting violence, those things are illegal. So it's when does that cross over from someone saying something that is hateful, or when it is hate speech in the eyes of the law that then makes it illegal. I think there's fine, and it changed all the time. I mean, in the UK, obviously we've had a lot of the protests in London, things like that. About the Israel and Gaza conflict and stuff like that, and in amongst that and other things that we've had protests for with climate change, and they're constantly changing some of the definitions, quite rightly, to kind of fit how society views what is acceptable. And if they're doing that and they're changing the laws, then you have to consider that. And that, from an absolutist point of view, I see that's where Elon is coming from. It's like the people, the people, we've got laws, these have all been put in place, the people have agreed on this, we'll follow the law. If it's illegal, we'll take it down. If it's not, it stays up. It's the
safest thing for... you know what? I don't even think it's tough. It's the safest thing he can do. He could basically say, look, you break the law, you break the law. You don't break the law, free reign. Because then the moment he starts either silencing someone on the left or silencing someone on the right, then the other side's going to jump in and it'll just become an absolute mess. And this is what happened with the old Twitter. This is one of the reasons he said he wanted to take it over, was he wanted to democratize Twitter. And I think what Don's doing here is he keeps going down the promotion route. What Don's trying to say is just the fact that you allow someone to publish means you're promoting. And that's where the clashing is. Don thinks just the ability to publish means X is promoting that content. And what Elon's saying is, no, we're not. And that's where they're coming to head.
Yeah.
It's they're not going to get, I mean, we said this ages ago, they're not going to get anywhere. They're just going to keep going radicals.
Don't agree on this.
Yes, you want censorship and I don't.
No, I don't want censorship at
Yes,
all.
you do.
No, I want responsibility. I think
You desperately want censorship.
No, if I want a censorship...
You want censorship so bad you can taste it.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I think that there's right and wrong. And I think that when you have a platform that's as big as yours and as powerful as yours and as influential as yours,
there is right and wrong, but who is Don to determine who is right and who is wrong?
I think that's the problem here, and it again comes down to that thresholds again. It's what's right or wrong, who gets the right to determine what's right or wrong. Because even in a democratic society, if the whole world was to vote to say whether something is right or wrong, there are still people that voted against it. You're still going to offend those people. So yeah, it's a tough one. You either censor or you don't. Is Elon's
What
point?
you have on
that absolutist point.
your platform and what you put out to the world, and I think that's important. You don't see that responsibility.
I think we have a responsibility to adhere to the law, and if people want the law changed, they should talk to their elected representative and get the law changed, and then we will adhere to the law.
Okay.
But if you want us to go beyond the law, that is us deciding to be censors.
So,
And I'm against censorship. I'm in favor of freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And freedom of speech only is relevant when people you don't like say things you don't like. Otherwise, it has no meaning.
but I do think that there should be guardrails, and I believe in free speech as much as you. I would fight. I don't disagree. I don't agree with a lot of what you put out on social media, but I will fight for your right to be able to say it.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, so listen, let's talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. All right, that's been a target of yours lately on X.
Elon doesn't.
There was a repost.
Elon doesn't believe what he just said.
Well, it's baffling. Literally, we've gone on, I don't know how many minutes we've been listening to this, but at the end, he goes, I agree that you say things that I don't like, but I agree that you have the right to do it. Then what have we been talking about for the last 10 minutes? Because that is literally what Elon's been saying, is people can put something up there that you don't like and you don't have to listen to it, but unless it breaks the law, it stays up there. And after all that, he just goes, I agree. It's that...
I believe in freedom of speech as much as you do. And Elon.
Well, yeah, that's definitely not the case, is it?
No, you don't. And because that's so. Yeah, it's weird to end it on a phrase like that after clearly not agreeing that there should be limits on freedom of speech. So yeah, it's a difficult argument to deal with.
I mean, you know what? It was almost like that flip from, rather than talking about moderation and censorship, is referring to it as freedom of speech, because you will never have anyone disagree from an America standpoint to not allow freedom of speech. So it's very clever.
Yeah.
Just for 1 second, let's just step back away from this and stop calling it censorship and just call it freedom of speech. And I mean, immediately one done over. I agree with you.
Okay, so listen, let's talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. All right, that's been a target of yours lately on X. There was a repost of Ben Shapiro that you claim that DEI is killing people. Specifically, you point to medicine. You claim that DEI programs are putting people at risk. Do you really believe this to be true, and what evidence do you have to support it?
What I was referring to there was that if we lower the standards for doctors, such so that they, if the test for a doctor is lowered, then the probability of them making a mistake and killing someone is obviously going to be higher.
Wait, say that again. I'm not sure I understand what you said. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
Yes, if the standards for passing medical exams and becoming a doctor, or especially something like a surgeon, if the standards are lowered, then the probability that the surgeon will make a mistake is higher. They're making mistakes in their exam. They may make mistakes with people, and that may result in people dying.
What evidence do you have, though, that they're lowering the standards? There's no evidence of that.
I believe there is.
There's no evidence of that, Elon. What is the evidence?
I believe they have literally lowered the standards at Duke University, and that is what the article was referring to.
There's no evidence.
Saying they have not lowered the standards?
There's no evidence about lowering standards, and I think that there is.
Leave that as a false statement you're making.
Okay, well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
I think
the interesting thing is when this is posted on the X platform, there will be a whole bunch of things that rebut what you said and what I said,
right.
And so people can then make their own decision based on the replies and the rebuttals and the community notes.
I think that's fair, but I do think that on this particular topic,
This topic should immediately be put to bed now. So they're basically talking about how they're trying to bring more diversity into higher roles. Elon Musk feels that there's evidence to suggest, and I don't know at this point whether there is, I will do exactly as he suggested and go look at this after. He's suggesting there's evidence that to widen the the diversity of certain roles is that they tried to bring the test levels down. Now, I don't know if that's true. Don Lemon says that's not true. Elon Musk says it is. Don Lemon says, well, I'll have to go check, which means he doesn't know if it's true or not, which means he's got nothing now. He's got absolutely nothing. Because if it is the case that the test threshold has been brought down, and this shouldn't be mistaken with saying people from diverse backgrounds aren't as smart. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying if they have brought it down to widen the net even further so they can increase the diversity, whether that's a white person coming through, a black person coming through, whoever, that in itself is what Elon is saying here. He's saying if they bring the test level down, then people who aren't as qualified as previously will be able to come through regardless of color. And I disagree with that element of it. And Don Lemon has said there's no evidence to suggest that. However, has also admitted he doesn't have the evidence either way. So at this point, it's just like, okay, you know what? Terrible question. I'll do my research next time. Let's move on. But he won't. And I can tell by how long this bar is right here. It's going to go on for some while. Yeah.
And I think it's, I have seen a couple of those stories with regards to the DEI, diversity, equality, and inclusivity programs. But they're few and far between, and not a lot of detail in those articles. So I still don't really understand what they mean by lowering and those kinds of stuff. So I get it. I mean, logically, it makes sense that you shouldn't lower the standards. I think everyone would agree with that. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. Everybody does the same test. If you pass, you pass it. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah. And the flip logic,
those should not be lowered. So I get that. I don't know what the rationale would be for lowering it.
Well, the rationale would be
if it's happening.
If Harvard want to accept more people, they will bring down the threshold that it takes to get into Harvard. Therefore, more people meet that threshold. Therefore, more people can get through. So if what they're saying is we need more people to come through from more diverse backgrounds, we'll lower the threshold, we'll get much more people, and then we've got a bigger pool size to pick from. And I think what Don Lemon is trying to do here is to frame it as, so you're saying if we want more ethnic people, black people, Asian people in these roles, we're going to have to make the tests easier. So you're saying they're not smart enough? And that's not what you're saying.
I think that you and Ben Shapiro are reaching in about this, because there was what Ben posted said that he gave instances of people who were deliberately harming people. Nowhere in the thread does Ben suggest at all, I should say, that anyone is being killed as a result of DEI. That's purely speculative. There's research on DEI and medicine, and there's no evidence that standards are being lowered, that DEI is affecting medicine. Actually, only 5% of doctors are black, and a small percent.
Yeah, I think you'll find that when this is posted to the X platform, that people will reply to it with evidence. Okay. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see.
Okay. So, but that's my whole thing about moderation. Maybe you're wrong, but you'll put it out there. You don't know if it's right. Do you think that you have a responsibility to make sure something is right before you, the person who owns it, Elon Musk, is a huge figure in the world, that you should know that it's true, that there are people at X who can get research for you before you put something
make any sense right there.
out there like that.
Because essentially what he's saying is this interview will go on and then will be fact checked. The community notes and stuff like that, and people will comment. And then he's saying, should you do that? Should you? So is he saying that this part of this interview shouldn't go on? I don't get how is he bringing that back to moderation and censorship, where they're having a debate? All Elon has said at this point is it will go on. People will have their say. People can make their decisions. There'll be community notes and all that kind of stuff. The fact checking can happen. People may or may not have reinforcing evidence for either of their arguments, from Don's point of view, and And then he's come back to this. This is what I'm talking about with censorship. Should you be doing it? Well, what do you mean? The interview shouldn't go on because you're talking about it? It doesn't make any sense.
It's unbelievably lazy. This is his first step into the Don Lemon show away from CNN. It was his inaugural episode with Elon Musk on the X platform. And every time he talks about research, he almost says it under his breath, like research, and then immediately jumps on. The one time Elon pulls him up and says, what research? He goes, oh, I don't know. And then 30 seconds later says, well, there is research that says it. But he's talking about the same research he admitted 30 seconds ago he doesn't have, and he'll have to go check it. So he's come in with all this evidence, but he's actually got no data to support it. Like he said, hate speech has gone up. Elon Musk says, well, I've got reports that it doesn't. He's had time to prepare for this interview. Why didn't he go pull the statistics? Why didn't he say, well, actually, if you actually look at the statistics here, it shows that hate speech has gone up? That would be very difficult for Elon Musk to answer if he had the evidence. He's not, which begs the question, why doesn't he? So is it just his perception is hate speech has gone up? Or has it actually gone up? And the fact that he has come here without the evidence to prove it is just really poor reporting, just lazy. Because, let's just say he is correct. He's literally allowed Elon Musk off the hook here because he's not got anything to back it up. So it's just one guy saying something. And the fact that he's not done it either means A, he's lazy, or it doesn't exist, and he didn't want the fact that it doesn't exist to prevent him from putting across his perspective.
Unnecessarily true. Even in other examples.
If I say something that is inaccurate, I'm immediately corrected on the platform. That's the advantage of a real-time system like X. So there will be immediately in the replies people correcting me. There will be a community note that will correct me, which is attached to the actual post itself.
Do you think as many people read
Yes.
You think as many people read that as it reads your tweet?
Yes, in fact, and if there's a community note that happens later that where somebody didn't see, but they replied to that or interacted with that post, we will notify them that there is now a community note correcting that post.
Just so you...
Whereas if you consider the conventional media, that doesn't happen. Conventional media makes false statements all the time and nobody ever hears the correction.
When I was in conventional media, I can only speak for myself. If I got something wrong, if someone got something wrong on the platform that I was on, it was corrected, and we made sure that it was corrected. Now, I can't speak for anyone else.
I don't think that's a universal situation.
Okay, so I just want the research. So when you talk, do you believe that people are dying because medical standards, DEI is causing medical standards to be lowered? Do you actually believe people are dying because of that?
I believe that if we lower the standards for what it takes to become a doctor.
You're saying if we lower the standards, yes. But do you believe people are dying because the standards are being lowered?
I don't think that is yet an issue, but it could become an issue.
Okay, but the actual evidence in history shows the exact opposite. If you look at how minorities are treated by the medical system, most doctors now are white, and there are lots of mistakes in medicine. So you're saying that white doctors have bad medical care? I'm trying to understand your logic here when it comes to DEI, because there's no actual evidence of what you're saying.
No, I said, so if the standards, like let's say, I think that particular thing was referring to surgeons. Let's say a surgeon is asked to, a surgeon in training is asked to do a series of operations under the supervision of a senior surgeon, and they get a bunch of those operations wrong. If that happens, and yet they are still approved to be a surgeon, the probability that someone will die, I think, at some point is high.
Okay, I understand that, but that's a hypothetical. That doesn't mean it's happening.
I didn't say it's happening.
You didn't say it was happening.
I said it will. I said if we lower standards, people will die.
But why respond to something or put something out there that has not happened? Because I could say...
Because I don't want it to happen. I think we don't want to lower standards.
Okay, if you look at the history of the medical industry, especially when it comes to Black Americans, it shows the exact opposite. If you look at the Tuskegee experiment and on, only 5% of doctors in America are Black. All of them are white. So are you saying that if the majority of doctors are white, are you saying that and there are still these inequities, right? And there's still mistakes. Are you blaming DEI for that?
No, I'm very basically saying that if we lower standards for what it takes to become a board-certified surgeon or, an oncologist or something where the kind of disease we're talking about, if you make a mistake, causes someone to die, then more people will die than if we don't lower the standards. Therefore, we should not lower the standards.
But why do you think they're lowering the standards for minority doctors or women doctors, or?
That's what that's what that article suggested. Yes, at Duke University.
Okay. The evidence that I have shows that that's not true.
Okay.
So listen, after the door blew off this mid-flight in this Alaskan Airlines flight, do you remember that? You responded to a post claiming that the average HBCU grad was less intelligent than the average airline pilot, and stated that it will take an airplane crashing and killing hundreds of people for them to change this crazy policy of DIE. I don't know if did you misspell it on purpose, which it should be DEI. Do you believe that women and minority pilots are inherently less intelligent and less skilled than white male pilots?
No, I'm just saying that we should not lower the standards for them.
Okay. But there's no evidence that standards are being lowered when it comes to the airline industry.
You've repeatedly said that there's no evidence that standards are being lowered.
This is, and he's now saying he's repeated. So I was about to say the same thing, but there's no evidence either side. This is a pointless argument at this point because Don hasn't got evidence that there isn't lowering of standards. Elon hasn't got evidence that there is lowering of standards.
Well,
Elon is saying if there's lowering of standards, that will lead to problems. I don't think Elon is disagreeing with diversity or equality or inclusivity. He's not agreeing with those three principles. I think he's saying that if the programs that promote those things include lowering of standards, then that's a problem. So I think, I'm not entirely sure, because
right.
Obviously everybody wants more diversity. We want equality and we want more inclusivity. And I don't think Elon would disagree with that. What he's saying is it keeps coming back to, if you lower the standards, that will cause problems. And he's saying there's evidence. Don is saying there's no evidence for that there is happening. But I think they're conflating different things. Elon's not talking about DEI in particular. He's talking about lowering of standards, which might be the product of a DEI program. Maybe, I don't know how that would happen. But that seems to be where the problem is, because Don keeps going on about DEI programs, whereas Elon's talking about lowering of standards, and they're definitely being linked without knowing how they're linked in the reporting. So.
Yeah, and this goes back to earlier what we were saying about building rapport. Is had rapport been established earlier, all the questions Don are asking could have been asked, arguably better and better researched, but it would have been much easier to sort these misunderstandings out rather than just two guys trying to be like the alpha male and just saying their piece, not listening to the other. It would, as you just did, it would be very easy to say, I think we're misunderstanding each other here. Do you have any objection to the DEI program? Do you think it's a good thing we're trying to increase diversity? Yeah. Now, if Elon Musk can say yes or no to that, and he will be judged on his answer, but that's not what's happening. Elon Musk is saying, if you drop standards, it's a bad thing. Don Lemon is saying, are you saying, I have to be careful because I am hypothesizing here, but I'm just basing it on the discussion points previous to this. Is Don Lemon trying to make the point that Elon Musk is saying people from a more diverse group of people are dumber? And it'll be interesting to see where this goes.
That was explicitly said, though, wasn't it, with the airline question? So are you saying that females and so he's
Oh, you're dead right. He did.
Yeah, he did pointedly say that, which I think Elon then is retorting about whether he's about to or he's just doing that, but that's where he's going with that. So
showing all the evidence that it is.
Replies, though, on social media or on Twitter are not necessarily fact and evidence.
No,
That's people's
they
opinion.
will cite
all
in the replies to this. You will see how often the information is cited, showing that indeed there are significant cases where standards are lowered.
And I do hope that happens. I do hope that happens, and I look forward to it. And as you said, if you're wrong, then you're wrong, and if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong.
Yes.
Okay. So let's.
it also
I'm glad
depends
we're having this
where they're
conversation.
citing
This
from.
is what
Though,
you should.
to be fair, because if you have a bunch of people that are just citing other articles that are biased, and then the other group are going to be citing articles that favour their position that are equally biased and unbalanced, then you're still in the same position.
Yeah, it's a sun fighting the Guardian reader.
It's a difficult one. So I get what Elon is saying, is that you'll get balanced critique from both sides. But what's the value,
the source
of that critique? What's the source of that critique? Is it just someone's opinion, or are they going to be citing articles that are already inherently biased? It's a difficult one. I'm not sure how X will solve that problem.
No, and I mean this just comes down to the things that you teach on the MSc as well. Is be critical of everything. Just assume someone is giving you their perspective from a biased point of view, and do the wider reading. And once you kind of cover all bases, you will come closer to what the truth is. But assume.
But then you're doing that for your own subjective nature as well. So there's always an element of bias. Everybody's biased. I think we know that. You just need to be aware of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Should be doing debating the issue. So if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and then they'll be proven in the thing, and you as well. But I just want to tell you that pilot that you talked about, in fact, was a woman pilot, landed the plane safely despite the major malfunction with the equipment. Boeing has taken responsibility for that incident, saying that it was caused by a faulty door panel. So I'm not sure what that had to do with lowering the standards for pilots when it was a faulty.
No, it's not lowering standards for pilots. It's the incentive structure. I believe at Boeing changed to include DEI as a fundamental executive incentive. But in my view, it should be purely about passenger safety.
Okay, but do you understand how by saying just that standards are being lowered, that you're implying that they're being lowered because people are less skilled and less intelligent, and you're talking about people of color and or women?
Look, I'm saying we should not lower standards.
But you don't.
That's it.
I think everyone can agree that you shouldn't lower standards.
Great.
But you're implying that they're lowering standards because of people of color or women, because someone is not a white male. You're saying that they're less skilled and less intelligent. That's what you're saying.
I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that they are.
Then why would they be lowering the standards?
I don't know. Why are they lowering the standards?
Just so you know, 5% of pilots are female, 4% are black. So you're talking about this widespread takeover of minorities and women when that's not actually true.
I'm not saying there's a widespread takeover.
Well, you're saying that the standards are being lowered because of certain people. And you don't believe in DEI?
Yes,
right?
There's a significant misrepresentation of what.
Yeah, that was
there. And I don't know whether he has in the past, but as Elon just said, I didn't say that. So yeah, there's obviously this agenda coming back in again. Interesting. I don't know whether he has said something in the past, but. Yeah, I hadn't heard him say it in that way up to this point. But
I mean, if there's one way to really piss someone off, it's to start putting words in their mouth, and that's what he's doing here.
Yeah. Do you not believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I think we should be treat people according to their skills and their integrity, and that's it.
Do you know that studies show? Yeah, well, we can look them up. So your reaction to studies show, and I understand, right? Because I always like to point to an exact study, right?
But you've not done it once yet.
It's the same thing when you talk about, well, let's see what the replies are on Twitter or on X.
Yeah, so
I feel the same. I feel the same way about that. But this is what studies have shown, and people will reply and they'll say that companies with more diversity and their leadership teams have reported higher innovation rates than those with lower diversity or low diversity, and they're
don't think
better
anyone would
companies,
disagree with
and
that.
they make more money. This whole idea about DEI, if you go woke or whatever, you go broke, that's not necessarily true. People with diverse leadership teams and diverse workers make more money and more innovative.
Like I said, my view is that the only basis for promoting somebody should be their skills, talents, and their integrity, and that's it.
I want to ask you about, there's a federal government EEOC. They are also currently involved in a lawsuit against Tesla that alleges that there's a history of widespread racial harassment against black Tesla employees, as well as a pattern of retaliation for speaking out. What do you say to that?
I don't believe that is true. I think we've got a very good, like if you walk around the Tesla Fremont plant, I think it's a very good atmosphere. In fact, I practically lived there for 3 years trying to make the production work.
Were you aware, if you lived there, were you aware of such behavior?
I never saw it.
So you're saying that this is not true, it's not happening?
Well, I mean, there's over 20,000 people. So you say, like, if there's over 20,000 people in one building, well, is everyone going to behave perfectly? No. Did I see any situations that I thought were improper? I did not.
Let's talk about trans rights and the woke mind virus, because you've talked about that a lot. You're right about that a lot.
And that's, again,
you have been deeply outspoken about the issue.
That's a bit there, isn't it? Because he's saying, were you aware of that kind of behavior? And he said, I didn't see any. Was his original response, which isn't the same as were you aware it was happening. And quite right, when you get 20,000 people together, it's a good argument that not everyone's going to get on, and behavior, is going to be hard to manage. But yeah, he certainly was. There was enough ambiguity in his response to be able to move on from that question. He kind of let it go quite quickly, I must admit.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't know what the report is he's talking about, but if that legit exists and there is legit evidence, then he's got something substantial to put towards him, because, having black employees saying they're mistreated, that's something substantial that needs to be talked about. Yet he let that one go fairly quickly, which was surprising.
Of trans right, you posted trans rights. You posted that pronouns in bio mean the woke mind virus ate your brain. Do you know what the term woke actually means?
It's come to mean a lot of things.
But what originally it was meant to mean, it's just being aware of inequities in society and being aware of facts and history.
Yeah, I think it's come to be. I think being aware of inequities in society is fine, of course, but trying to blame everything on trying to make everything a race issue is, I think, divisive and corrosive to society. Even as it relates to trans issues, which is what I'm. Yeah, race or gender or whatever.
You think that society blames everything on racism now?
It blames a lot of things on it, and. Yeah.
You think that's unfair?
Yeah.
Why?
I think we should not make this a constant subject. I think we need to move on. I think we just treat people like people. You don't agree that this country was founded on racism and founded on slavery and in many ways inequities? That still continue on to this day? I think every country at that time, and I think even today, was extremely racist. Every country. And obviously slavery was present in about half of this country. But was not present in the North. There was racism for sure. But I think we want to look to the future rather than the past. And instead of engaging in constant rehashing of the past, because in fact, if you look at history, if you study history broadly, everyone was a slave. Everyone.
Yes. Well, not everyone was a slave.
No,
but,
everyone was a slave.
Okay, but
we are all descended from slaves.
yeah. Well,
All of us.
yeah.
It's just a question of when. Was it more recent or less recent? That's it.
right.
But what future do we want? Is this something we want to make a part of our constant dialogue forever, or do we want to say, like, let's just move on and treat everyone, according to just who they are as an individual?
I agree with you with that. That's the ideal. But what the evidence shows is that that's not what's actually in practice.
I think we're doing better than anywhere else.
That's true. I agree with that. But that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean a lot to a whole lot of people who aren't able to take advantage of the opportunities that you were able to take advantage of, simply because the color of your skin.
What advantages did my color of my skin give me?
Well, there's an ease that you have in society that many people of color don't. You were able to come to this country voluntarily. There are many people who were not able to come to the country voluntarily. There are people who came here as slaves.
For me to come here.
And there is a legacy of slavery that still continues on. There's a legacy of racism that still continues on in this country. That's undeniable.
Yeah.
Gender or whatever issue, and just treat people like individuals.
Do you have any desire to understand what many people of color and even trans people, how they feel about this country and how they're treated in this country? If they say and they believe that they are treated a certain way in this country, why don't you believe them?
You cannot have a situation where someone is a self-described victim, and they just get to be that because that's how they feel.
I think that does happen in some cases, but not all cases. And I think that not understanding the history of the country, I think, is a real shame. Look,
We should understand the history of the country and other countries.
I've had incredible opportunities as a person of color.
Right.
But I've also been
very well.
But I've also been discriminated against, and I know that I have. And I know that that's real. And for someone to say that that isn't happening, I should just move forward and not think about that and ignore the past, is insulting.
I'm not saying it. Don, you keep putting words in my mouth. I'm not saying it.
I didn't say that you said it.
I'm saying that we want to. We as a country should move beyond the questions of race and gender, and we should treat people like individuals and base our opinions on them on the, their character and their skills.
I don't think that anyone will disagree with that.
Exactly.
All I'm saying is that that's not happening and is not equal for everyone. That those opportunities don't happen for everyone, and I am a living example that they don't. I know that they don't because I live it.
You've been incredibly successful.
I have been,
and
in spite of it all. But I know what I know. I've experienced what I've experienced. You haven't done that, and I cannot. I don't know what it's like to be from South Africa. I don't know what it's like to be a white man. I don't know what it's like to be a woman. I don't know what it's like to be a Latino person. I don't know that. So I wouldn't speak for them and just say, you need to move on. That's not for me to say. I believe that it would be great if the country could live up to that ideal. You think that everyone has the...
So that's a really weird thing to say, is Elon Musk said it would be great if we could all just move on and everyone just kind of forgot about race. That would be amazing. Like, just no one saw color. We literally saw people for people. Don Lemon agrees with that, but says Elon Musk doesn't have the right to say it. So what is he saying? I've suffered more, so I should be the one to say it, not you. That was my interpretation of what just happened there.
The same opportunities in America, regardless of their background and ethnicity. Do you agree?
No, I don't think everyone has the same opportunities.
Okay. So when you talk about, let's talk about trans rights. When you decided to talk about the trans rights movement, you said that it was a woke mind virus. Why do you believe the trans rights movement is a woke mind virus? What do you mean by woke mind virus?
Woke mind virus is when you stop caring about people's skills and their integrity, and you start focusing instead on gender and race and other things that are different from that. I think the woke mind virus is fundamentally racist, fundamentally sexist, and fundamentally evil.
Okay.
And we've got a little bit more time, so
yeah.
you choose your question.
Okay, okay, thank you for that. But I would appreciate you answering these. I think it's important that we're doing this. I think it's important to the world to hear this, especially what's going on in our country. The reason I ask you, listen, there are a whole lot of things that people maybe have questions about when it comes to transgender people. Even people who are part of the LGBTQ plus community have questions about that. But if you are a free speech absolutist, right? And that is part of the First Amendment. Also, the freedom of expression falls under that First Amendment as well. So why can't people choose to identify with the gender that they feel comfortable with, or with use a pronoun? Isn't that part of freedom of expression?
I guess no. They can ask others to do whatever they feel. They can ask others to do anything. It's a different question whether they mandate that others do that thing.
Okay, let's talk more about free speech and for advertisers, right? Because all this controversy, I believe, as you know, has made X less appealing to advertisers. About half of them have left the platform. You call advertisers that left X.com. You said they were oppressors. You've even gone as far as saying it publicly that they can go F themselves or go fuck themselves.
If they're going to force censorship on the company before advertising, then obviously I find that unacceptable.
You find it unacceptable. Why is that not a form of free speech? They are free to advertise where they want. They're not beholden to. They're not obligated to advertise.
They're not obligated.
On X.com.
Right.
So, how is that not free speech?
They
legit have the choice.
Whereas the other platforms will censor on behalf of advertisers, the X platform will not.
Okay. So, but you don't think it's okay for them not to advertise with or have their content or their advertisement next to something that is anti-Semitic or?
That is a different question. You can absolutely choose where next to which content do you want your advertising to appear. Absolutely, of course. And we have, I think, very good ad placement controls in this regard.
Yeah. So you said if they kill the company, it's them. But doesn't the buck stop with you? I mean, you're on. I have to say, choose your question carefully. There's 5 minutes left. Okay, but so
is this the question you want to ask?
The same question is you said that they are killing the company, but you're the head of the company. The buck doesn't stop with you?
I acquired X in order to preserve freedom of speech in America, the First Amendment. And I'm going to stick to that. And if that means making less money, so be it.
So I have to listen, I'm just being honest, right? I'm not trying to get you or anything. I was just surprised that you would blame other people for killing the company. I mean, when you say the buck stops with the President of the United States, regardless of what happens, right? So why would that question upset you? You seem upset by it, are you?
I think you.
And I'm not trying to upset you.
Well, you are upsetting me because the way you're phrasing the questions, I think, is not cogent.
It's not what?
Not cogent.
Cogent.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Wow.
If given a choice where an advertiser is saying you have to censor all this content on the platform, irrespective of where their advertising appears, then our answer will be look, you can choose where you want your advertising, what you want your advertising to appear next to, but you can't insist on censorship of the entire platform. And if you insist on censorship of the entire platform, even where your advertising doesn't appear, then obviously we will not want them as an advertiser.
So what would you say to advertisers who have left the platform or who are considering coming back or not coming back? What would you like to say to them?
Well, first of all, almost all of our advertisers are coming back to the platform. So it's a very short list of advertisers who are not coming back to the platform. And our advertising revenue is rising rapidly. and our subscription revenue is rising rapidly, and I feel very optimistic about the future of the X platform.
Okay. Listen, honestly, I'm not meaning to offend you. You're an intense person. Where does that intensity come from?
I was born that way. And I had a tough childhood.
You did?
So, yeah.
Yeah,
How so?
now, isn't he?
Right, Walter Isaacson goes
checking
into it in the
out
book, and we only have a couple minutes left, so
All right.
too long to describe. So there are one or two questions I can do, and then we'll...
And the thing is, you can't say I'm not here trying to attack you. You know, I'm not coming after you.
Not trying to get you. Yeah.
It is clear as day that is all he's done. So he's actually insulting his intelligence at this point. It's really, really poor.
Right. Okay. Again, I don't mean to upset you. Why are you just...
No, I have a whole room full of people waiting to meet with me.
Okay.
So we're just going over time.
Okay. All right. I understand that. So when you talk about, you said you were born that way. Is that, did you think that the way that you see the world has to do with your relationship with anyone, perhaps your father or someone in your family?
He just said, I don't have time to talk about
We're all
this. And then
affected
he's
by
gone
people
straight
we
in.
grew up with. My aspiration is to do whatever it takes to extend consciousness into the future. That's my goal. To make life multiplanetary as part of extending consciousness into the future.
Have the past few years, and considering everything that's gone on, has it been difficult for you and your family life?
It's been okay.
So then, how do you see your legacy, Elon? How do you see how people see you in the...
First of all, I say that if I died knowing that I did what was right, or did my best to do what was right, and even if in the history books they said I did wrong, I would still feel okay about that. I care about the reality of goodness, not the perception of it. I think we should view civilization as tenuous, as fragile. If you do study history broadly, you'll see that there's a rise and fall to civilizations. They don't always go up. So we should do everything we possibly can to preserve and extend civilization as we know it.
Yeah.
And improve it. To become more enlightened over time. And we therefore want to address civilizational risks. We want to make sure that we don't have, for example, demographic collapse, which is the case in a lot of countries, just very low birth rate. We want to avoid World War III, anything that is a civilizational risk. That's what I care about, civilizational risks. How do we extend consciousness into the future such that we are able to better understand the nature of reality?
Yeah.
That's what I care about. That's my motivation.
I know you have to go. If you'll just give me, I'll do a rapid fire thing here. Is there anything that you would change about anything that you've done in your life in the past or recently?
I've made many mistakes over the years. If I had a time machine, I'd go back and fix them, but I don't have a time machine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So that's it.
Well.
And as Elon would say, you be the judge. Let me tell you something about this show. The conversation doesn't end just because the camera stops. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching The Don Lemon Show.
So yeah, those last pointed questions were evaded by Elon. I think he checked out.
But because of time,
He checked out. He needed to be somewhere else. Whether he did need to be somewhere else, not we make the assumption that he did.
I mean, they said at the very beginning it was going to be a 1 hour session, so it's actually disrespectful to then be like, you know, why are you only giving me one more question? It's like, because there's an hour and we've done it.
But a very interesting interview, and it's interesting to watch the breakdown from the beginning to the end and watch it gradually. That rapport slowly wear away, and the distance between Elon and Don definitely grew over time. I mean, they were already distanced from a opinion point of view, but that rapport definitely came in and then gradually went. From about a quarter of the way through, it started to wane towards the end.
No, it really did. And for those who don't know, I mean, it's kind of out there everywhere now, but shortly after that interview, was filmed before it was aired, Don Lemon received a text from Elon Musk just saying his contract on X was terminated. So that interview itself was enough for Elon Musk to decide to no longer work with Don Lemon.
Yeah,
and that's where we're up to now. So I've avoided till this point. I've avoided looking at what's out there where people's opinions are split. You know, is it the pro Elon, pro Don Lemon? So that's going to be interesting to have a look at, because I think the way that I mean, I'll only speak for myself here, but I viewed this was Don Lemon had gone in with an agenda here, and that agenda wasn't to understand Elon Musk. It was to get across his perspective at the cost of Elon Musk. That's how it felt. And he would have done a better job at doing that had he actually done a bit more research, because a lot of his gotcha questions were flippant and he had nothing behind them. What I wish he'd actually done was just gone to try and understand more about Elon Musk. You know, it was a bit of a missed opportunity, I think.
Yeah, as with you, I think if it had been more of a debate, more of a dialogue, and less of an interview with gotcha questions, I think he missed an opportunity there. I think it could have been, because the same things would have been approached and would have been discussed, but it wouldn't have been of Don versus Elon kind of context. It would have been more of a conversation about things that are happening in the world, and let's just talk about some hot topic areas and talk about how we differ in our opinions, and then agree to disagree and then move on to the next thing. It's fine to do that, but it was very much Don coming in with an agenda, with gotcha questions. You're wrong. Why don't you think the way that I'm thinking? And we're not agreeing with either of them at this point. And I think it's worth going away and having a look at what the rest of the world thinks about all of these kinds of things. And see where it goes. But yeah, it was a difficult and uncomfortable interview to watch at times.
It was. Right, mate. That wraps things up for us. So
okay.
I will let you get on your merry way, and we'll see you all next time.
See you later.
All the best.